Welcome to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective and creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Greetings, welcome, and thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. It's Christian of Standing Stones Healing. So honored and grateful to have you here. So thanks so much for tuning in. This week's episode is actually part one of a two-part episode on online classes for your Reiki business. And this is a two-part episode because there's a lot to say about online classes. And there are always lots of questions about online classes as well. So I'm honored to bring you this two-part episode breaking it down for you. So when we talk about online classes, I first want to break them down for you into two categories: live online classes and not live online classes. Live classes are ones in which we are showing up live with our students and teaching on the topic, whatever it is we might be teaching. I'm going to share with you some ways that you can consider setting up live classes in a moment. But the live classes are as opposed to not live classes that, there's no actual technical term for classes that aren't live because there are lots of different types, and we will definitely talk about those when we talk about not live classes. But the not live classes are just simply ones in which you are not showing up live along with your students and teaching them. And then finally, you can have a hybrid class. So you can have a class that is a combination of live and not live. And we're going to talk about all of the possibilities. Well, not all of the possibilities because truly they are infinite, but I'm going to give you some possibilities that you might want to consider for your own online courses. So like I mentioned, live online classes are done in real time. This is where you are teaching the class at a scheduled time with your students. This is also very common for online workshops where you schedule a time and people sign up and join for that time, and you are teaching live at that time. So let's say that you want to teach a Reiki class, Reiki 1 online. You would first need to determine the time when you would want to hold it, the hours, the schedule, the days and times, and for how long you would want to teach the class. You'd then need to decide how you wanted to teach it. And Zoom is very common. At this point, everyone knows how to use Zoom, and it's very simple to use. I use Zoom a lot in my Reiki business, but this is a very simple way where you would just schedule the time. Let's say you want to teach Reiki 1 on a Saturday. Maybe you want to do the whole day, kind of a class thing. I personally don't teach Reiki as a one-day class, but you could. That's absolutely possible, and many teachers do. But to teach Reiki 1 on a Saturday, a full Saturday, for instance. So you'd schedule the day, schedule the time, get your students to sign up. There are lots of ways to get them to sign up. I'll talk about that in a second. But then you would show up at that day and time along with your students and teach on Zoom, just like you might teach in person. The only difference is you're not meeting in a classroom, you're meeting online, and you can wear your sweatpants. Now, this is what is known as a live synchronous class. A synchronous class is one in which everyone is learning at the same time. And so students are experiencing the class and going through the content at the same time. So in-person classes are live synchronous classes. And when we teach online in a way that is like in person except online, that's just a live synchronous class. This is probably the kind of online class you're most familiar with. It is the most common in the Reiki community. So you will see most Reiki practitioners who teach online are teaching live synchronous classes. Now, one of the big pros of this kind of live synchronous online class in which you're teaching in real time is the interaction. The ability for us to interact with our students to interact with us, and the connection that comes from that, because the students can see you live, get to know you, feel comfortable with you, and feel comfortable and connected with their classmates as well, especially if it's a small class. That level of connection can be really powerful in a class. I know I've seen that in my own classes, where the students create connections and friendships that last far beyond the end of the class. And so that connection is really pretty powerful and pretty awesome. But there are some cons with this kind of online class model. Some of the cons are just the scheduling of it. You know, when we have an online class, we have the ability to reach students all across the world. And I know this is something that I've been challenged with in my own Reiki business, is finding a good time that works for the whole world. And so scheduling can be a challenge when it comes to those real-time live synchronous classes. Another con of this kind of online class model is that it's time consuming. You know, you've got to show up, you've got to be there live, you've got to put in the effort, just like, of course, if you were teaching in person. But when you're teaching online, you're going to end up just like in person, of course, but saying the same things over and over again, and doing the same things over and over again. So let's say you're teaching Reiki 1 and you're teaching that online, live. You're going to end up saying the same things in Reiki 1 again and again and again that you say all of the time in Reiki 1. Now, again, if you taught in person, this is how it works in person anyway. But when we're online, we have the ability to record the sessions. And so if we didn't want to, we wouldn't have to show up live and say the same things over and over and over again. But one thing that is also nice about this model is that we can answer student questions in real time and get them and answer them right away. We can also get a feel for our students, the group, and where they're at. You know, when you're teaching live in a synchronous model, you can get the students' questions and get their feedback in real time. So you know where students are, you know what they're having a challenge with, and you know where you might need to offer more support and more information, maybe more discussion or activities or more examples to help the students understand the topics and the subjects more deeply. So teaching live in real time, in a synchronous kind of way, is the way that most of us start teaching online. It's the way that most of us think about teaching online when we think about teaching online. And I think that one of the cheapest, lowest cost ways to do this. So if you're like, oh, I'd love to teach online, but it's just so expensive. You have to buy Zoom. You have to worry about having all of the right tech. And I'll even say that for many people, they would like to teach online classes, but they're afraid to because of the tech. Here is a simple, cheap, free way to teach online classes. Is it the best way? Not necessarily, but it is a free and cheap way to do it. Number one, set up your payment processor. Whether you are accepting payments via a Stripe link, a PayPal link, Venmo, however you accept online payments, set that up. Number two, set up the, special link where people are going to pay. You can even set up a calendar class workshop session. If you get payments through a calendar system, you could set it up like a class, a workshop, or even an appointment, how you would with your calendar setting, but just open it up to accept more than one person, however it works for you with your calendar system. But you accept payment in that way. Then you set up a private Facebook group, and you have the people who have paid join the Facebook group. Then you teach inside the Facebook group. So you go live in the Facebook group. Now, you're not able to be live with your students in that way. Facebook does Facebook at least used to have a way that you could do a group chat in a group, so you could go live like on Zoom, but in Facebook. I haven't used that in Facebook for a couple of years. When I did, it was kind of wonky. I don't know if Facebook still uses that, but if they do, you can even do a Zoom-like gathering in a Facebook group. But if they don't, you can just go live in the group. Now, your students won't be able to be live on camera with you, but they can interact in the comments. And so you can teach, and the students are commenting, interacting with you, asking questions, interacting with each other in the comments section on the Facebook Live. So there you go. You can teach your first online class in that way, completely free for zero investment except your time. Of course, there are plenty of other platforms besides Zoom. You can use Google Meet. I've used Google Meet for things, and you can use lots of other platforms as well. It's just that Zoom is the one that, by and large, we're all most comfortable with, and the one that most people have used. So it's a great way to start with your online, live, synchronous classes. Now, in my Reiki business, I've taught a lot of classes and a lot of workshops in this way. The live synchronous model. So Reiki, for instance, I've taught that way. Card reading, I've taught that way. Just all kinds of classes and workshops. I don't even know how many at this point I have taught in this way. And for me, I think the greatest challenge of those classes has been the time investment and the scheduling of it. But of course, just like with a live in-person class, these are the kinds of challenges that we're going to have with those kinds of classes too. But when I teach in person, I'm not showing up in my sweatpants. You have to admit, that's a major perk of teaching online. When you teach your live online classes, I want to encourage you to record them. Record them every time. Now, of course, you can offer the recordings to the students. You don't have to. You can as part of the class, but even if you don't offer the recordings to students, I want to encourage you to record and to keep those recordings. And I'm going to share why with you in the next episode. I'm going to share why in part 2. So, do you teach online classes for your Reiki business? What kinds of classes do you teach in your Reiki business live online? How do you teach them? What kind of ways do you like to teach them? What are some of the benefits? What are some of the drawbacks, the pros and cons for you teaching online classes live in your Reiki business? Join us in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz and tell us all about it. And by the way, if you are interested in learning more about building your own distance Reiki business online, I've got a whole program for that, the Distance Reiki Business Builder. You can learn more and start right now at standingstoneshealing.com/distancebiz. Yep, those links are down below. So no matter what kinds of classes you are teaching in your Reiki business, I'm sending lots of blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and send to a friend. Learn more about the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build. Sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business.